Guys, the lesson we're going to be doing today is finding volume and surface area of cylinders. The volume part is actually going to be reviewed because that's what you did today or yesterday, but we're going to add to that and we're going to be finding surface area as well. Just know that I am not expecting you to memorize these formulas. Please write them down as you're watching the video. Follow along, take notes, and then I will also provide a note sheet for you so you always have access to the formulas. But just a kind of a reminder, a cylinder is a circular, three-dimensional shape, and it has two circles for the bases. So your notes for yesterday worked with volume, and you were using the formula listed right here. So pi times r squared times h, and that is always going to give you the volume. Down here, this formula is going to be new, and it's kind of intimidating looking, but if you kind of break it apart step by step, it is going to be a lot easier to use. A couple things to just keep in mind when we are finding volume and surface area, the only two things you need to know are your radius and your height. So always pick out those pieces of information before you do any of the calculating. When we look at the cylinder that we have in front of us right now, the radius they gave me is 3 centimeters. So that's what I'm going to use for R when I'm substituting it into the formula. And my height is 2. So I know my radius and I know my height. Those are the only two things I need to know. So just to recap, when we're doing volume, we're going to take our information, we're going to substitute it into the formula. So I have pi, my radius is 3, so we have 3 squared times the height, which is 2. I would evaluate the numbers first. So you have pi, and then 3 squared is 9, and then 2. When you do 9 times 2, we get 18. So we're going to write up here, we have 18 with the pi attached. If you are ever asked to write your answer in terms of pi, that is this answer right here. So in terms of pi just means you kind of ignore the pi until the very end. If I want to know an estimated answer, we're going to take 18 and we're going to multiply it by pi, which, just to recap, pi equals 3.14. So 18 times 3.14 is going to give me 56.52. And then area, remember, volume is centimeters cubed. So my final answer would be that. Again, if we wanted the answer in terms of pi, so in terms of pi, what that would look like is 18 pi centimeters cubed. It does not matter either way, but that you might be asked to put it in terms of pi. And again, all that means is you're ignoring pi until the end. So surface area is going to be a little bit trickier just because it has a little bit more to it. But what we're just going to start with substituting in what we know. So I know 2 and I know pi. So in this case, my radius is 3 squared. So we're just going to substitute that in there. And then we've got plus 2 pi times my radius, which was 3, times my height, which is 2. So that was just kind of going through and taking each of these and substituting in for each of those variables. So now we can kind of go through and first evaluate the easy stuff. So I've got 2 pi and then 3 squared. So I technically have 2 pi times 9, because 3 times 3, so 3 squared is 9, plus, then I've got 2 pi. 3 times 2 is 6. We can combine the numbers together from there. So 9 times 2 is 18 pi. And then 2 times 6 is 12 pi. Again, if I want to know what my answer is in terms of pi, I'm going to take 18 plus 12. And 18 plus 12 is going to give me 30. So if I want my answer in terms of pi, my answer would be 30 pi centimeters squared. Otherwise, we can take our 3.14. So 30 times 3.14 is going to give me 94.2 centimeters squared. Again, both of those answers are correct. It just depends on what it's asking for. All right, so that's volume and surface area. We are going to do one more example. So we've got this cylinder here. Again, we need to know, in order to find either of these, what my radius is and what my height is. Remember back to when we were first talking about circles, the distance all the way across is the diameter. So to figure out the radius, we're going to take the diameter and we're going to divide it by 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. So my radius is 5 inches and my height is 6 inches. Now we're going to use those to figure out our volume. So we've got pi, the radius was 5, so we have 5 squared times 6. 5 squared is 25, so you've got pi times 25 times 6. 25 times 6 is going to give me 150 pi. So now if I wanted my answer in terms of pi, my answer would be 150 pi inches cubed. And if I want an estimated answer, I'm going to take 150 times 3.14, and that is going to give me 471 inches cubed. So again, both of these answers, they are the same thing. One of them is in terms of pi, and the other one is just a rounded answer. The one in terms of pi is going to have pi in the answer. All right. Again, surface area. We have our formula. We know what our radius and our height is. So now we're going to go through and substitute in. So we've got 2 pi, and then my radius is 5 squared, plus 2 pi, again my radius is 5, and my height is 6. Go through and evaluate what we can. So I've got 5 squared is 25, and then I've got 2 pi, and then 2 pi, and then 5 times 6 is 30. From there, 2 times 25, so we're going to connect those two, is 50 pi, plus 30 times 2 is 60 pi. So if I want my answer in terms of pi, I would get 110 pi inches squared. So my answer for this one would be 110 pi inches squared. If I want my rounded surface area, so a rounded answer, I would take 110 and I'd multiply it by 3.14. So 110 times 3.14 is going to give me about 345.4 inches squared. So again, both those answers work. It just depends on what we want. So both of these are my surface area. Make sure you are careful to label correctly. Remember, volume is at cubic units and surface area is square units. Please refer to notes. Please write down the formulas so you know what you need for it. Again, I'm not expecting you to memorize this, and please let me know if you have any questions.